The Toothpaste Millionaire. 3. People with babies were glad to save jars for Rufus, as nobody had thought of a way of instantly recycling baby food jars before. When Rufus put a sign on the bulletin board at school saying he could use the jars, kids brought us hundreds of them. We sterilized and filled the jars. When we had about 500 jars, Rufus and I stuffed our saddlebags with as many as they would hold and rode our bikes around the neighborhood selling the toothpaste. We sold quite a few jars. At only 3 cents a jar, most people felt they could afford to give it a try, and most of the customers said it was good toothpaste. Still, I could not see how Rufus was going to get rich on 3-cent toothpaste unless millions of people knew about it. Then I had this idea about how he could get some free advertising. Everybody in Cleveland watches a program called The Joe Smiley Show. On the show, Joe interviews people who have interesting hobbies. I wrote Joe Smiley a letter telling him I had this friend who had a hobby of making toothpaste and could make about a 2-year supply for the price of 1 tube. And Joe Smiley called up Rufus to ask if he would be on the show. Rufus was very good on the show, though I was afraid that he never would get around to talking about the toothpaste. I was worried because when Joe Smiley asked Rufus how he had learned to make toothpaste, Rufus started telling about his grandmother Mayflower. He told not only about the scrapbook paste, but about how his grandma Mayflower had made her own furnace out of 2 100-gallon oil barrels. Joe Smiley was so interested in that furnace that it was hard to get him off the subject of Rufus's grandmother. Rufus told about his grandmother taming raccoons, woodchucks, mice, chipmunks, and catbirds, and of course, about her brushing her teeth with plain baking soda. But the story I liked best was about his grandmother's name. It seems Mayflower was his grandmother's whole name. She didn't have any last name till she got married. Then she took her husband's name, which was Proctor, and was known as Mrs. Mayflower Proctor. But Rufus's grandmother never did like the name Proctor because it was a slave name. Rufus explained that back when there were slaves, a black man was sometimes called by the name of the white family who owned him. So when Mayflower's husband died, she dropped the Proctor part of her name, and she and her children went back to being Mayflowers. Then Social Security came along and said she had to have a first name and a last name on her Social Security card. But rather than let the government put her down with a slave name, Mrs. Mayflower wrote the Social Security people and signed herself Mrs. May Flower, with a space between the May and the flower. I love that story. In fact, I'm seriously thinking about changing my name to Mac Kinstry, as I don't care too much for Catherine. Mac sounds like a boy's name, and boys' names usually sound a lot more forceful than girls' names to me. But I'm getting off the subject of toothpaste, just as Rufus did on the Joe Smiley Show. You wouldn't think all that stuff about Rufus's grandmother would sell toothpaste. But then, as my father pointed out, you wouldn't think Rufus's way of advertising the toothpaste would sell toothpaste either. Joe Smiley is the kind of guy who is always saying things are the greatest thing he ever heard of, or the most fantastic. If a girl comes on his show in a pink coat that Joe thinks is attractive, he'll say, "That's the most fantastic coat." There's nothing that special about the coat. He just means it's nice. What I mean is, he exaggerates. And everybody Joe has on his show is one of the greatest people he ever met or has done the most fantastic thing. So when Joe does get to Rufus's toothpaste, he naturally gives it this big buildup, which is what I was counting on. And what does Rufus do? The conversation went something like this. Now, Rufus, this fantastic toothpaste you make, I suppose it has a special secret formula. No, it's made out of stuff anybody can buy for a few cents and mix up at home in a few minutes. Fantastic! And of course, it's much better than the kind you buy at the store. I don't know about that, but it tastes pretty good. And for about 2 cents, you can make as much as you get in a 79-cent tube. Fantastic! And where can people get some of this great toothpaste? If they live in East Cleveland, I'll deliver it to them on my bike. 3 ounces costs 3 cents. It costs me 2 cents to make, and I make a 1-cent profit. If anyone outside East Cleveland wants some, I'll have to charge 3 cents plus postage. Fantastic! And what do you call this marvelous new product? Toothpaste. Just toothpaste? It doesn't have a name like Sparkle or Shine or Sensation or White Lightning or Personality Plus? No, it's just plain toothpaste. It doesn't do anything sensational such as improve your smile or your personality. It just keeps your teeth clean. Who would have thought that telling people toothpaste wouldn't do one thing for their personalities would sell toothpaste? But 3 days after Rufus was on the Joe Smiley Show, he got 689 orders for toothpaste. One came all the way from Venice, California, from a man who happened to be telephoning his daughter while she was watching the show in Cleveland. The daughter said, "There's a kid here who's selling toothpaste for 3 cents a jar." And her father ordered 3 dozen jars. Fantastic! There's a song that goes, "I'll get by with a little help from my friends." Rufus couldn't have filled all the orders that poured in after the Joe Smiley Show without some help from his friends. Luckily, after the show, a lot of kids began coming around every night after school to see how Rufus was doing. Rufus said they could hang around, but they'd have to help us pack toothpaste. We were working in our laundry room now. When Rufus's mother decided she couldn't have her kitchen turned into a full-time toothpaste factory, I asked my mother if we could use the workshop at the end of our laundry room.